Have you ever looked at a world leader and thought, how did this person get elected? Not just incompetent, not just unqualified, but dangerous, delusional, sometimes even deranged. And yet they rise, again and again. History is full of names we whisper with regret. Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, Idi Amin. Even modern democracies aren't immune. Clowns in suits, narcissists with microphones, leaders who value applause over truth, and the people cheer them on. Why? Are we broken? Are we blind? Are we being manipulated? Or are we just afraid? Because here's the terrifying truth. The world doesn't always reward wisdom. It rewards confidence. It rewards noise. It rewards performance, even when that performance is hollow. You're not crazy for feeling like the world is upside down, because sometimes it is. When thinkers are mocked and liars are elected, when clowns become kings, you have to ask yourself, what the hell is going on? And in this video, we'll go deep into the psychology, history, and philosophy of how crowds choose comfort over competence, and why, again and again, we end up electing idiots. Part 1. The psychology of the crowd. We like to believe that people make choices rationally, that when it's time to vote, to choose a leader, to steer the direction of a nation, people sit down, think, weigh the facts, and decide with reason. But that's a lie, because most people don't vote with their heads. They vote with their hearts, and more often than not, with their fears. Welcome to the terrifying psychology of the crowd. Gustave Le Bon, a 19th century French social psychologist, wrote a book called The Crowd, a study of the popular mind. In it, he argued that individuals in a group behave differently than they do alone. In a crowd, people lose their sense of self. They stop thinking independently. They become emotionally contagious, reacting to the mood of the group rather than the message of the speaker. Crowds don't care about nuance. They don't want long-term plans. They want emotion, simplicity, certainty. And guess who thrives in that arena? Not the wise, but the loud, the manipulative, the charismatic, the confident liars. We gravitate toward certainty, even if it's fake. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman, who won the Nobel Prize in economics, explains this with cognitive ease. The easier something is to understand, the more we trust it. A leader who says, "I alone can fix it," feels more reassuring than one who says, "This is complicated and we need a multi-layered solution," even if the second one is telling the truth. Because truth requires effort. Fear loves shortcuts. The crowd craves identity over integrity. People don't just vote for policies, they vote for who they think they are and or who they want to be. If a leader speaks like them, looks like them, blames who they blame, they feel seen, heard, empowered, even if that leader is an idiot, even if they're a walking red flag with a megaphone. As long as the crowd feels emotionally connected, they'll ignore everything else. He tells it like it is. He's one of us. At least he's not like them. That's how democracy becomes demagoguery. Fear makes us short-sighted. In uncertain times, war, recession, pandemic, the human brain goes into survival mode. We don't want vision, we want rescue, someone to make us feel safe even if they lie. This is why populists rise during crises. They sell comfort. They sell enemies. They sell scapegoats, and people buy it. It's not your fault, it's their fault. Don't think, just follow. So if you've ever felt confused, if you've ever wondered why your intelligent, kind neighbor voted for a narcissistic lunatic, remember, it's not always about logic. It's about fear, identity, and emotional manipulation, and it explains a lot. That's the psychology of the crowd. Part 2. History's pattern of electing idiots. Let's be honest. This isn't a new phenomenon. Idiots rising to power isn't a glitch in the system. It is the system. When it goes unchecked, history is overflowing with examples of leaders who shouldn't have been anywhere near power. but ended up with crowns, armies, or nuclear codes. Nero, the mad emperor of Rome. In the 1st century, Nero inherited one of the most powerful empires on earth. What did he do with it? He sang while Rome burned, literally. He fancied himself a performer, a poet, an artist. While his people starved and buildings crumbled, he threw extravagant parties and forced senators to applaud his music. Nero's narcissism wasn't just tolerated, it was celebrated by those who feared him or wanted his favor. And when Rome finally turned on him, it was already too late. Andrew Jackson, America's dangerous populist. Fast forward to 19th century America. Andrew Jackson, a war hero turned populist president, rose to power not on the back of policy, but pure rage. He painted himself as a man of the people, someone who drained the swamp long before that phrase was fashionable. But behind that image, he passed the Indian Removal Act, leading to the Trail of Tears, a brutal forced relocation that killed thousands. Jackson's followers didn't care. He hated the elite. He punched reporters. He made them feel powerful, and that was enough. Hitler, charisma over chaos. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but it must be said. Hitler didn't seize power overnight. He was elected. Germany, reeling from war, depression, and humiliation, wanted someone to believe in. Hitler gave them certainty, pride, someone to blame. He promised to make Germany great again, and people believed him. Smart people, educated people, because emotion trumps education when identity is under threat. The result? A genocide, a world war, 60 million deaths. Never underestimate what a loud, broken man can do with a broken audience. Idi Amin, the butcher of Uganda. In the 1970s, Idi Amin promised Uganda strength and independence. But behind his booming laugh and military uniform was a man with no real education, no economic strategy, and no moral compass. He ruled by terror, tortured dissenters, expelled entire ethnic groups, and still, some loved him because he acted strong, because he stood up to the West, because he didn't sound like a politician. But strength without wisdom is just cruelty wearing a crown. Modern madness. When clowns take the stage, and now we elect entertainers, reality TV stars, meme-worthy politicians, people who don't lead, they perform. They tweet more than they read. They smile while spewing conspiracy theories. They get applause not for their ideas, but for their insults. We laugh, we mock, but they win, because in an era of endless information, emotion still beats evidence. Part 3. Why intelligence doesn't always win elections. Here's a bitter truth. You can be the smartest person in the room and still lose the room. You can have data, research, logic, and common sense, and still get crushed by someone who knows how to feel louder than you think. Because elections, they're not IQ tests. They're emotional theater. Politics is not about policy. It's about identity. Most people don't vote with their minds. They vote with their hearts and wounds. Who sounds like them? Who makes them feel seen? Who shares their anger, their pain, their enemy? A genius might present a 30-point plan to fix the economy. But if the other guy just shouts, "They're stealing your jobs," guess who gets the headline? We don't elect the best arguments. We elect the best narratives. Smart people often lack one crucial skill: connection. Think about it. The truly brilliant candidate might be calm, detailed, rational, but comes off cold, distant, unrelatable. They quote studies when the people want stories. They correct grammar when the people want fire. They sound like professors giving lectures, while their opponents sound like neighbors starting revolutions. People don't follow the best idea. They follow the voice that makes them feel safe, or seen, or strong. The curse of the overthinker. Highly intelligent candidates often over-explain. They think the crowd wants accuracy, nuance, complexity. But crowds are tired, scared, distracted. They want clarity, certainty, slogans. Smart people ask, Well, it's more complicated than that. But voters hear that and feel ignored. Because when your house is on fire, you don't want a dissertation. You want someone who screams, "Follow me, I've got the hose," even if they don't. Snake charisma greater than competence? It shouldn't be this way. But the most charismatic snake often beats the quiet truth-teller. They speak in absolutes. They project power. They look like they know what they're doing, even if they don't. Meanwhile, the truly qualified candidate is triple-checking facts before speaking. One is rewarded for confidence, the other punished for caution. And confidence, no matter how false, is magnetic. Why smart people need better storytelling. So what's the solution? Do we just give up and let fools run the show? Smart people need to stop hiding in facts. They need to fight fire with story, with simplicity, with emotion, without sacrificing truth. Because the truth isn't weak, it's just badly marketed. So if you're intelligent and wondering why you're not winning, remember the game isn't just chess, it's theater, it's war, it's sales, it's human. You need more than answers. You need presence, you need passion, you need fire and the truth, because if you don't bring it, someone else will bring lies with fireworks. Let's get honest. If elections were about nuance, evidence, and logic, half of history wouldn't have happened. But they're not. They're about fear. They're about spectacle. And they're about making complex pain look like a simple enemy. Fear is the ultimate salesman. You want people to move? Scare them. Fear bypasses logic. It shuts off analysis. It ignites survival. That's why so many leaders sell threats instead of solutions. They're coming for your jobs. They're destroying your values. You'll lose your freedom unless you vote for me. It doesn't have to be true. It just has to feel true. Fear turns voters into believers, fast. And the cruel irony? Once fear enters the bloodstream, truth doesn't matter. Only protection does. Simplicity is addictive. Here's the problem with real solutions. They're messy, they're slow, they require patience. But a good political salesman? They offer one-line answers to million-dollar problems. Fix the economy? Just lower the taxes. Stop crime? Bring in the army. Unemployment? Blame the immigrants. These are not answers. They're emotional sugar, quick, addictive, and empty. But in a world drowning in complexity, simplicity feels like oxygen. Spectacle replaces substance. Modern elections are no longer debates. They're shows. Rallies become concerts. Debates become reality TV. Speeches become viral clips. And whoever performs best wins. It doesn't matter if they're lying. If they look powerful, if they sound confident, if they entertain the pain of the masses, they rise. We don't reward depth. We reward dominance. We don't ask, is it true? We ask, did it hit? Fear plus simplicity plus spectacle equals viral victory. Here's the brutal math of modern elections. Scare them. Make them feel threatened. Give them one enemy. Simplify the chaos into a villain. Make a show of strength. Spectacle becomes the illusion of competence. That's it. This is how democracies elect disaster. Because the crowd doesn't follow the best idea. They follow the loudest fear. But it's not hopeless, because once we see this formula, we can stop falling for it. We can ask better questions. We can pause before reacting. We can demand substance, not just showmanship. But first, one we must admit, we've all been seduced by the spectacle, all of us. Part 5. When smart people stay silent. The cost of disengagement. They saw it happening. They read the signs, heard the lies, predicted the fall, but they stayed silent. Why? Because they were above it. Because politics felt dirty, chaotic, or pointless. Because they thought intelligence meant distance, not duty. And in that silence, the idiots won. The curse of the educated observer. Smart people often sit back, watching, analyzing, overthinking. They say, it's not my fight. People won't listen anyway. The system is broken. They let the noise of the crowd drown out the weight of their knowledge. And while they ponder and perfect, Someone louder takes the mic. Someone with simpler words and dangerous intent. Democracies don't fail because no one knew better. They fail because the ones who did know did nothing. The cost of disengagement. Let's be blunt. When thinkers stop speaking, when teachers stop teaching, when creators stop creating with courage, the stage is handed over to manipulators, narcissists, and power-hungry opportunists. History proves it. Hitler wasn't voted in by fools alone. He rose during a time when brilliant German intellectuals withdrew. They believed it will pass. They stayed in salons and lecture halls, while the streets were filled with rage and slogans. By the time they woke up, the silence had become complicity. Why do smart people stay silent? Because speaking up is uncomfortable. Because they fear backlash. Because they think the truth should speak for itself. But it doesn't. Truth needs a voice, a body, a pulse. Silence isn't neutral. It's a decision, one that has consequences. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Edmund Burke. Intelligence is not a shield. It's a responsibility. Your insight is not meant to be hoarded. Your clarity is not just for private satisfaction. If you see the world falling into madness, say something, do something. You don't need 1 million followers. You need moral courage. Because if the wise don't show up, the loud will write the rules. So ask yourself, where have I withdrawn? What have I let slide? Because it was easier to say nothing. Where could my clarity make a difference, even in small circles? Maybe it's a post, a conversation, a stand in your local community. It doesn't have to be global to be powerful, because silence, while comfortable, is expensive, and the invoice always arrives. Part 6. The Rise of Anti-Intellectualism. Why People Distrust the Smart. Why is it that in times of crisis, chaos, or uncertainty, we often distrust the smartest voices in the room? Why do people mock scientists, hate professors, and roll their eyes when someone uses big words? Why does smart now feel like a threat instead of a strength? Welcome to the age of anti-intellectualism. He talks like one of us. It's the phrase that sinks nations, because in a democracy, perception is power. And the more average someone sounds, the more relatable they seem. People don't want to feel inferior. They don't want to be talked down to. They don't want to be told they don't understand. So they reject the intellectual, not because the intellectual is wrong, but because they remind them of what they don't know. It's not hate. It's insecurity, dressed as rebellion. The rage against the elite. Over the years, intellectual has become synonymous with elitist, out-of-touch, arrogant, cold. And while some of that perception is earned, most of it is weaponized by those who want power. They say things like, "These experts don't care about you. They just want to control you. They think they're better than us." And just like that, truth becomes suspicious. Facts feel like attacks. Wisdom sounds like manipulation. When intelligence becomes a threat, smart people ask hard questions. They complicate simple narratives. They say, "Oh, it's not that easy." But the crowd doesn't want nuance. It wants certainty, emotion, black and white. And the more intelligent someone is, the more they remind us of what we're avoiding. The truth, the complexity, the consequences. So we turn on them, we laugh at them, we boo them off the stage, and we elect someone simpler, even if they're wrong. Because ignorance feels safer than feeling stupid. The tragic irony. The people who could fix the world with Sidon are often the ones people stop listening to. And the ones who sound just like us, they're given the microphone. We don't elect the wisest, we elect the most familiar. And in doing so, we lose the very thing that could have saved us. Truth backed by understanding. How did we get here? The internet flattened expertise. Everyone has a platform. Everyone feels like an expert. Complexity feels like manipulation. If you can't explain it simply, you're hiding something. Pop culture mocked the nerd. From sitcoms to schoolyards, intelligence became uncool. People crave emotional validation, not intellectual correction. Feelings are the new facts. And when emotion drives decisions, the person who feels right wins, not the one who is right. So, What can we do? We need to humanize intelligence again, not as something cold or distant, but as something deeply empathetic. Truth is not a weapon, it's a light, and smart people must learn how to carry that light gently, not like a sword, but like a torch. We must teach, not lecture, guide, not shame, because the real goal is not to be right, it's to help others see more clearly. Subtle strings and piano. In a world that rewards loud over wise, the true revolution is thoughtful speech. So if you're one of the smart ones, don't hide, but also don't boast. Speak like someone who remembers being confused, and maybe, just maybe, the world will start to listen again. Part 7. Reclaiming the future. What can we do about this? We've seen the problem, the cycle that traps us, nations electing fools, anti-intellectualism rising, fear and spectacle winning the day. But here's the truth. This story is not finished. The future is unwritten. The power of individual action change doesn't come from waiting for someone else. It starts with you, with small, courageous steps. Vote, not just with your ballot, but with your voice. Speak up when misinformation spreads. Challenge the easy answers, because silence is consent. Building a culture that values wisdom. We need to rebuild trust in knowledge, support education that teaches critical thinking, encourage curiosity, not conformity. Celebrate people who admit they don't have all the answers. Let's shift from who sounds the loudest to who thinks the deepest. Bridging the divide. The world is polarized, but real progress happens when we listen, not just talk. Practice empathy. Try to understand why someone might fear complexity. Meet anger with patience, because change begins in conversation. The role of leaders. True leaders don't just win votes. They inspire. They educate. They lift people up, even when it's hard. Look for leaders who value truth and humility, who admit mistakes, who treat intelligence as a tool for service, not a weapon for power. The new revolution. This isn't a political revolution, it's a revolution of mindsets. It's about choosing courage over comfort, curiosity over certainty, and action over apathy. And if you're watching this, you're part of that revolution. So, the path forward isn't easy, but nothing worthwhile ever is. We can reclaim our future, not by electing idols, but by becoming wise citizens, by demanding more from ourselves and from those who lead us. The question isn't just why we elect idiots. It's what will you do about it. So stand up, speak out, build bridges, seek truth, and watch how the world slowly, beautifully begins to change. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And thank you for being part of the solution.